Okay, thank you. Well, and thank you, Shalini, for sharing your emotional status right now. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling again excited. I love to do training.
Do the dance. I
Thank
was gonna say,
you.
do the dance.
Can you see me try to move my legs like that? To barely walk. So, but yeah, I'm excited. I love to do training but I also feel a little bit frustrated at times because oftentimes people put in positions where they need to do things that they've had no training for, no experience, and it really, unless you get some really good training right away, it kind of sets you up to fail, and it sets you up to feel bad. Like Nina, you were saying, confused and like, yeah, it's like you've been doing things for a long time, but there wasn't somebody around to say exactly what you needed to do. And these competencies were put together by SAMHSA even after maybe about 10 years after I was in the field. So I started out thinking that counseling was just sitting around and visiting with people or doing a lot of activities and stuff. But so SAMHSA got together a work group of people from across the country, various disciplines to look at exactly what kinds of services do we provide to our people to make sure that they get the best services possible to be able to learn how to make changes in their lives. So they came up with these competencies, and I always get the questions from people because I start out with the practice domains. There are eight practice domains. I start there, and the competencies start at number 24. And people say, "What? Where are the other 23?" So I'm just going to give you this information, and please write it down. So the other 23 are in previous works. It's all part of the competencies, but it's in category called transdisciplinary foundations. And so there are four competencies. Four competencies on 4 areas, 4 dimensions under transdisciplinary foundations, and those are understanding addiction. And there are 4 competencies in that, 4 competencies to understanding addiction. The second one is in treatment knowledge. And there are 4 competencies under treatment knowledge. The third one is application to practice. And that one has 9 competencies. So knowing, applying what we're learning to what we're doing with our patients.
Application to what?
Practice. And in practice, they mean in the work that you're doing, in the counseling field. So, and then the fourth one is professional readiness, and there are 6 competencies there. So we should be able to look at those 6 competencies in professional readiness and tell you if this person is going to be a good counselor or not, or ready to even try, right? So I will put those together in a format that's easy to read, like something like this, 6 competencies in that area. As a matter of fact, I'm working on them now. So I will put them together and I will email them to you, and you can study them. And if you want assistance in understanding them, I can do that later on too. The other thing is, everybody write this down. SAMHSA, that's the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. They have these tips and taps, and they're books, and they're free. So
Tip to what?
tip number 21.
Okay.
And it's a book this thick that tells you these things, and I'm going to try to tell you like in an hour and a half. But they have some books that are called tips and some that are called taps.
Okay.
But everything you'd ever want to know, you can find in those. So let's go ahead, and we've got the objectives. The first one is just to become familiar with the 8 practice domains, and then to be able to demonstrate knowledge of and ability to describe the importance of 2 of those domains to assuring that our people are getting the best services. Okay, any questions before we go on? Okay, so my name is Lois DeLong, and I have a doctoral degree in clinical psychology, but I'm not licensed in psychology because I haven't been under a psychologist supervision for 2 years. I haven't found anyone that was smarter than me. No, sorry. I'm sorry. No, I just haven't been in a place where I've had psychologists above me. I've always kind of been the supervisor. But now I've got Dr. 4 in Albuquerque. So I don't know. If I'm around long enough, maybe I'll get licensed, maybe not. The other credential is licensed professional counselor. So I hold that license still. All right, so, and I've been working in the field for almost 43 years now. I started when I was 2. So I've been working in the field a long time. And when I started, I was a high school dropout. I had no degree, I had no credential. So I started with nothing. And so everything I learned really was just from the very basic all the way up. But I've had good teachers all along, and it was mostly on the job training. And then I went back to school and all this stuff. So anyway, it's doable. Can we see the next slide? So these are the areas we're going to go over today. Right there. Yep. So these are the 8 practice dimensions, 8 domains in the practice dimensions, and you have these on your handouts. The first one is in clinical evaluation. Domain 2 is treatment planning. Domain 3 is referral. Domain 4, service coordination. And those of you that are credentialed as case managers, you have to know a lot in that domain because everything that's in there is what you'll be doing. Domain 5 is counseling. Domain 6 is client, family, and community education. And this is where a lot of the prevention stuff comes in. But prevention is not just fun and activities, it's like educating people, educating families, individuals, clients, groups of people on how to do something healthy, life-affirming, you know, a change to their usual functioning. 7th domain is documentation. And this is very important, and we're going to do a lot of work in that area. And then the 8th domain is professional and ethical responsibilities. We're going to review all of these today, but I want you to know that we mostly operate out of domain 1, 2, and 7. Any questions so far? Anytime you have a question, just let me know. So in clinical evaluation, and this is just looking at taking a picture of the client, you know, a clinical picture, asking all the right questions, looking at several different domains of their lives, getting information of the historical and current information. And so there are 2 elements in clinical evaluation, that's screening and assessment. Somebody read me the definition of that, and then we'll discuss the definition.
The systematic approach to screening and assessment of individual thoughts about behavior health, mental health substance use disorders being considered for admission to addiction-related services.
Okay, so this is just about everybody, first of all. Any, I don't know anybody who doesn't have an issue that they would like to change somehow. Even if it's simply, I want to quit smoking, because smoking is affecting my lungs, that's an issue. They could be seeking help for that, and I would still provide the same quality of service as I would to somebody who is, say, suicidal all the time, or who had a lot of trauma. But one of the things we know for sure that in Indian country is that I'd say 99% of the people experience trauma, historical trauma, intergenerational, current trauma, ongoing trauma. And trauma is like, it's cumulative, so it builds up and builds up and builds up. And so most of our people have got so much trauma that we've gone to a whole new category in the ICD-11, and that's complex trauma. one of the criteria of complex trauma is that it is so bad, we deny it's there. Our psyche kicks in and says, nah, that's normal, don't worry about it, but it's there. So we do the screening. We have screening tools that we use to look at different specific issues. Can somebody name me some of those screening tools? ASAM, PSQ. Can you say what the PSQ is about? Patient stress questionnaire? Yeah, and that includes the PHQ-9, which looks at the need for further assessment in depression. The GAD-7, which looks at whether there's need for further evaluation in anxiety. And then we have ACEs that we look at to really tell us about the trauma that people aren't recognizing as trauma, adverse childhood experiences. We have a short PTSD questionnaire, but most of our people, like I said, the ACEs is kind of a better gauge because they can tell you, oh yeah, when I was a kid, this happened. Oh yeah, when I was a kid, this happened. But most of the times they'll say, but that's everybody. But that's still trauma and they're just denying it. And they're not lying, they just don't know it's trauma. And then there are other screens to look at relapse potential, ADHD or high energy situations. There are functional screens to look at if people are not, if they haven't learned how to do something correctly, can't take care of themselves or whatever. So we have a lot of screens that we look at. In addition to that, there are biopsychosocial assessments, various kinds. And a good one will build in the ASAM criteria into it. So we here at the Wellness Center have an excellent comprehensive assessment that we use. Okay. So assessment and screening are the elements of clinical evaluation. Okay, somebody read the screening element first and then we'll go on.
Screening is the process for which the counselor or the client and available significant others review the current situation, symptoms, and other available information to determine the most appropriate initial course of action, given the client's needs and characteristics and the available resources within the community.
Okay, so, and screening, like a lot of programs will say, well, we deal with males only. So we'd screen out all the females. Or we deal with people, only adults, age 19 to 60. So we'd screen out all the people younger than 19 and over 60. Or they might say the screening might be, we're only dealing with people who are native. So those things have to do with the screening. And also when we do a screening, if your initial screen shows that there's a need, then we'll do a further evaluation and provide that service. Some people, if they come to us and they say, oh, I'm really feeling down today, and then we do a screening around depression and they're not really down, they're just sad about something, chances are they don't really need services, but we might refer them to a support group or we might just sit with them for a while ourselves, so but they don't really need to be placed anywhere. And the reason why SAMHSA did this is because there was a period of time, like about a 20-year period of time where, geez, everybody was being sent off to residential treatment because there was a lot of money put into it at the time. And most of them didn't need it. They didn't get anything from it because they weren't ready for it, right? So they said, we've got to find a really logical method of determining who needs what level of treatment. So they came up with this and the ASAM stuff. Any question about that, about the screening? So in a nutshell, screening looks at appropriateness and eligibility. Appropriateness has to do with things like gender, age, ethnicity, like that. Oh, that's eligibility, I'm sorry. And then appropriateness looks at what are the issues, mental health issues, addictions issues, severity of those. So that's screening. I'm already hoarse, I'm sorry.
What was it? Appropriateness and
Eligibility,
eligibility.
yeah. So when they have adolescent centers, they don't take people above a certain age or below a certain age because it wouldn't make sense. Okay, so the competencies under screening, I'm really gonna have to have you guys read these because my throat's not gonna hold up. So let's have somebody start with this one on competency 24.
Okay, I'll do that one.
Okay,
Establish rapport, including management of crisis situation and determination of need for additional professional assistance.
so how would you know if there's a crisis situation going on?
Like it's emotional, distraught, or they just tell you that
Yeah.
they're feeling or thinking, having thoughts of hurting themselves or others.
So yeah, so if there's a crisis going on, okay, or if they need additional help.
Competency 25, gather data systematically from the client and other available collateral sources using screening instruments and other methods that are sensitive to age, developmental level, cultural, and gender. At a minimum, data should include current and historic substance use, health, mental health, and substance-related treatment histories, mental and functional statuses, and current social.
Mhm. So what are some of the collateral sources that this team would gather information from?
Parents, family members,
Mhm.
hospital,
Yeah,
the probation,
social services, schools. Okay, so when you're doing an assessment, and one of the things about collateral resources is that, first of all, you get a better picture. Like a grandma can probably tell you more about a granddaughter than the granddaughter could say herself, just by sitting with you. Or a best friend could tell you more about somebody than maybe you could just gather. The school can tell you something and family can tell you something totally different, but there's some elements of truth to all of what you're getting. So the more information you gather, the better it is for you. Plus, part of CYA is that you're not looking at the liability, on your own. The liability is kind of spread across the whole range of people and agencies so that everybody has that input. So that's the beauty of multidisciplinary, assessments, treatment, services, yeah, so.
So
Okay.
when does this usually happen?
Right at the beginning when you're doing your assessment and before. Like one of the things here is sometimes we'll have a parent call. They have an adult child. They're saying, I really need help with this person. I need somebody to talk to them. This is going on, this is going on. So it's good to say, we'd be happy to work with this person. They would have to contact us. However, in the meantime, would you be willing to, fill out this information as well so we know what's going on? So the parents can do that questionnaire. We have one in our toolbox. It's called a significant other and family questionnaire. So friends.
So
family
the
members.
parent would, that question was more for the part where the school and all the different places get involved. Is that for the parent information or do we contact them?
We would probably contact them because the parent may not know about it. So for like other agencies, once somebody's our client, we need them to sign releases for us to get information from other agencies, including like previous treatment. But if a friend or a parent calls and says, I want help, and that person is not our client yet, we can have them fill that out ahead of time. And we just don't discuss it with those people after the person becomes our client. Does that make sense? That way everybody's protected.
So on the questionnaire, there will be questions of what
and where or who they associate with so that we can contact them with their phone numbers, like the school, the person that attends the school, they, you know.
Not on,
No,
not on that questionnaire. That would be part of our assessment when we're
Okay.
working with the client. We ask them, but no, that family and significant other, it's mostly for when people first contact us and we want them to get involved in the treatment with their loved one, then we get that. So there's a lot of places to get collateral information. And one thing we should always do is look at previous treatment history. Where did they go to treatment? How long were they there? Did they complete or not? What did they learn? How long did they stay clean and sober when they came out? Or not attempt, self-harm or anything when they got out of wherever they were. So we always want to get that.
We're going out to places.
Mm-hmm.
They screen for psychoactive substance toxicity, intoxication, and withdrawal symptoms, aggression or danger to others, potential for self-inflicted harm or suicide, for mental disorders, environmental and or economic constraints.
Okay. So we're looking at, are they on something? Is there something in their body even from the day before or a month before? Are they currently intoxicated, high, not functioning correctly? Are they withdrawing? Withdrawal can be very dangerous in a lot of situations with a lot of the chemicals, especially alcohol. And then with some of them, psychotic behaviors may be present, like self-harm, suicide, harm to others. So we want to make sure they're not in one of those places. We also want to make sure that their environment is safe. If somebody comes in really beat up and says they might get beat up again if they go home, we want to keep them from going home. We want to get them help right away. If they have medical things that are really threatening them, we want to get that help right away. So that's all part of the screening. There's a special screening that Shalenia does at the jails. It's for immediate need. It's to see if those people are well enough to be in jail or if they need to be sent to the hospital or someplace else. Okay.
Assist the client in identifying the effects of substance use on his or her current life problems and the effects of continued harmful use or abuse.
And that we have in our assessment, our biopsychosocial, because we always want to see what's going on in all areas of their lives because of what they're doing. And we have a template that in parentheses under each heading, there's a parentheses of instructions on what to include in that questionnaire. And so if a person follows those directions, they'll get all that information that they need. Sometimes they forget to delete the instructions. So when I look at them, I'll delete those instructions. At least you're following it, that's good.
What was CYA?
Oh, cover your, yeah. Because we want to make sure we're safe in what we do too. And we want to trust all of our people, give them the benefit of the doubt. But sometimes people can misunderstand things and turn them around and say something different, like, well, they told me this, and that might not have been what you said, but that's how they heard it. So we want to make sure we've got some proof.
To CYA, that for the resources that we would ask is how the resources that we're going to get information from.
Yeah, well, we'll document, where we got that information. So if somebody comes back and says, well, I don't know where you got that, you're saying I'm crazy and I don't know, we could say, well, we got this diagnosis by history from previous,
Is that like the individual you asked me?
Yesterday?
Yeah. So she had come back in to bring her court document, not court document, but MVD for the screening.
Mhm.
And then I told her that I asked her a question about the first part on the can't remember what it was, but anyways, I asked her about that and she was all like, really, I didn't say that, she said, and so I'm glad I still have my stuff highlighted. So I showed her that, I said it has all yes on there, on her nightmares and all that. And she was all like, no, I don't, the dreams are just there, I don't know what it's about, she said. So I just took it off because that's what she told me.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's good to check. And then plus, if they're still like somewhat under the influence, like a day or two later, they could still be impacted by whatever they were using. It's good to recheck again. But
So I
yeah,
took it off.
Good.
Okay.
okay. Right. And then the other one too, where there was two different diagnoses and you weren't sure which one, it's best to check. But then if they come back and say, well, who made this
Well, I kept
diagnosis?
looking at it and then I got online and I read about it and then it talks about the hallucinations and all that. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
So I left it as the F-21.
yeah. Schizotypal. Yeah, so a lot of those have like hallucinations and delusions in common, but with the schizoaffective and those kinds of things, they also have mood disorders like bipolar or depression. I remember that from my testing. They said if they're asking about schizoaffective disorder, think about depression and schizophrenia, getting married and having a child. Oh, geez, that was weird.
So,
But
so
made sense.
on stuff like that, when we come across that, I usually ask Susan, but then why is it different? Like one clinician does that, and then the other clinician puts that, so they can actually change if they.
It can change, but oftentimes a person doesn't give real clear information about themselves. You have to do more digging. But yeah, you could change, as long as you document all of that, why you changed it, yeah. And when you first write in that diagnosis, put by history. That way they know you didn't make the
Yeah,
diagnosis,
because
somebody
I
else
have
did.
to look into his file and we look at his other, what do you call it, assessment.
Yeah. You did really good, by the way. Okay, so are we on the next one?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, 28. Oh, I'm sorry. Any other questions about the previous list of competencies? Okay. The 28.
Training the client's readiness for treatment and change, as well as the needs of others involved in the current situation.
One of the most effective ways is using the ASAM severity criteria, because there's a whole section on readiness to change. And there are behavioral descriptions of where a person's at, what severity, and what you do is check off, you start at the bottom and check off. And because somebody can come in and say, I really need help, I want to go to treatment. Turns out they don't want to go to treatment, they want to get out of jail, right? So they have a lot of motivation to get out of jail, but it's not to get help. So then their level of readiness is very low, actually. They're not ready to go. So that's a good tool to use, and it's required that we use that in our
So
assessments.
is, I have a question.
Mhm.
So is, sober living, are they gonna start doing their own assessment with those? We still will be doing them?
Mhm. Yeah, we did an SOP with them last time I was here. Got it clarified. So yeah, now if we've already done their assessment and sent them to residential and they're just coming back, we just do a real brief update to look at what they got while they were gone, and then we send that on. If it's a brand new person, especially if they're coming out of the jail, we want to do a real thorough assessment before we send them over. And actually, I think, well, if you read the SOP, but I think the completed documents go back to the front desk to Chastity. I think that's what we said. We better check.
Okay.
Better check with them, so.
Can we do the assessment and the treatment plan?
And I would really like to start training the sober living people to start doing some of their own treatment planning, or at least be a part of it. Be on the team for that, because there's gonna be a lot of things they do over there that it's gonna be different than what they're doing here. And so there's a different focus from what they should learn than what, so, but we'll get to that. Yeah, but I think it's gonna be an okay process. I think it'll work. Okay. Number 28, sorry, 29, I'm sorry.
Review the treatment options that are appropriate for the client's needs, characteristics, goals, and financial resources.
Okay. And so when they're coming here, options are things like at what level of care, what level of care is recommended by their ASAM criteria, first of all, and then what level of care could they realistically do? And if they're appropriate for outpatient, there are some things that we offer that they can choose from. And then there's some that they just have to do. Now, in addition to that, they can choose, like from sober living, they can choose like where they're gonna go for their spiritual activities, what they're gonna do for recreational activities. There are more choices there than there are here, but we just review them. And make recommendations because based on the goals, there might be something you think they'd really benefit from and they hadn't thought about.
30, apply accepted criteria for a diagnosis of substance use disorders and making treatment recommendations.
Mhm. So if you're looking at, if one of the criteria is that they continue to use despite getting in trouble over and over, you might want to really look at putting in their treatment plan that they explore the relationship between their problems and their substance use. What is, what is you call it, the nexus of that? Is it their emotions that they can't deal with? Is it something going on in their lives that they can change? You want to have them look at that. And it's important then to know the criteria for substance use disorders. And there are like 7 criteria to look at. And in our assessments, we look at those. So.
31, construct with the client and appropriate others an initial action plan based on client needs, client preferences, and resources available.
Okay, what does that mean to you guys?
The client,
Mhm,
and depending on if they have support service, if they want somebody included in their treatment plan or tell them,
mhm.
or other agencies regarding kids too, because there's like social services
Mhm.
that needs to be involved in maybe
Yeah.
the schools. It just depends on the situation.
Yeah, and sometimes appropriate others, we want to be careful how we look at appropriate others. For instance, we don't want their best drinking buddy to come in and be a part of the plan. Does it make sense? Or do you- or in some cases, we have.
Some of that with fruit.
That happens, yeah. But sometimes too, it's like maybe the grandmother who really loves a child dearly will be the biggest obstacle to their healing. And so we don't want that person to be a part of the treatment planning. We want to inform them, but you can't read those, huh?
No, again, I didn't know that. Wait, I have it on here.
Yeah, but it's just really tiny.
No, we need to print out this one. It's my email, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, good.
32,
Mhm.
based on the initial action plan, take specific steps to initiate an admission or referral and ensure follow through.
And so what we do here, because most of the residential programs want an assessment, is we'll just go ahead and go right into the assessment. If we're not gonna work with them at all, if they just want like support or whatever, we'll make a referral somewhere else. Or if they need a service that we're not offering, like we don't offer anger management or domestic violence services, just because we don't have anyone trained other than our director. Our license, at least not licensed, and the state hasn't licensed us to do anger management, so we refer those people elsewhere. Any more questions? Any questions at all on screening? Okay, so let's go into the element of assessment.
Okay, we're gonna
One back,
go back.
two back. There
Sorry,
we go.
I'm lost.
That's okay, you're doing good. Thank you. You're not my legs, but you're my arms. You're my fingers for today. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that though. Okay, somebody read that element of assessment.
Assessment is an ongoing process through which the counselor collaborates with the client and others to gather and interpret information necessary for planning, treatment, and evaluating client progress.
Okay, so it's an ongoing process. We don't do an assessment in 1999 and continue doing treatment for 10 years without updating it. We update assessments every year and every time something significant happens. Say we did an assessment in August on somebody and then in January, they got drunk and got another DUI, we would update their assessment because something significant had happened. Or even if they've discharged, but it's within 1 year, we only do an update on them. If it's over a year since they discharged, then we do a whole new assessment and then start growing from that one. So it's ongoing, keeps growing anytime something new happens. Something significant, you know. Things like even like a divorce, an arrest, a relapse.
So, go ahead.
What did you say about the withdrawal, when they withdraw from, like if they quit coming and then they come back, we do it again?
Oh, when they drop out of the program and then come back? If they dropped out, if they just quit for like less than a year, when they come back, we update things. Unless something significant happened.
So my question is, if like the significant event happens, do I do where do I document that? Do I go into the intake assessment part and put new?
Yeah.
And then just add that part in?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Make sure.
You don't have to rewrite the whole thing because anybody looking in that section should look at everything that's been documented in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But in our files, just be aware that some of the stuff isn't in there. Kind of started putting it in there now, but yeah. So, any other question, Robert? Do you have a question? You're okay? Right. So just know that it's ongoing, it gets updated regularly and that, you know, something significant happens. Okay, next page, we got it. Okay, competency 33.
Select and use a comprehensive assessment process that is sensitive to age, gender, racial and ethnic culture, and disabilities that include but is not limited to history and current status of AOD use, alcohol use, addiction treatment, history and current status of physical needs, mental needs, legal, criminal, and employment, family of origin and current family issues, psychological, emotional, worldview concerns, spiritual concerns of a client, education, basic life skills, social economic characteristics and lifestyle, use of community resources, treatment readiness, level of cognitive and behavioral function.
So at the very minimum, those things need to be in an assessment. Does everybody know what AOD is an acronym for?
AOD.
I just heard that.
Is it alcohol? No.
Alcohol and other drugs,
Oh, alcohol.
AOD. Because people used to think alcohol was not a drug.
Mhm.
So it's alcohol and other drugs. This is a synonym. Okay. All right. So what's the importance of gathering information about family of origin? You know what family of origin is, right? FOO, you know what that is? It's the family you were raised up in,
Mhm.
born into and raised up in, okay. And then current family is like, if you're married, you have your own family, all that kind of stuff. Two different family sets. Okay. Spiritual concerns. Now, spiritual doesn't mean religious. At the very beginning in demographics, we ask them if they have a religious preference. That's just so we know where they're coming from. But spiritual is way different from religion, although religion can be part of it. But when you're asking somebody about their spiritual, you're basically asking about their spirit. And if they say, I don't know, then that's a big issue because that's a big part of our disease. We've lost we're all confused spiritually. So, okay, then education and basic life skills. So they went to the 12th grade, but they can't read or write. And they graduated high school, but they can't read or write. And that happens a lot. And I don't know why that happens. That doesn't make sense to me. Unless it's that no child left behind thing. Graduate them even if they don't know. I don't know.
Can you go to spirit again? Like, how would you?
I was asking this client of mine, she's a young lady, and she said, well, you know, I don't really think I'm anything anymore. I really don't like religion because they're all this, that, and the other thing. And I said, well, tell me what makes you feel the best about yourself. Where are you at? What are you doing when you feel the very best about yourself? And she said, you know what? I went to New Zealand not long ago, and she said, and I was touring, and I went on top of a mountain in New Zealand, and I felt just connected to God and to earth and to everything around me. That's a spiritual thing. Her spirit came alive and started to embrace things around her. So things that make you feel like life is wonderful, you know.
Connectedness.
Connectedness, yes. Sense of belonging. It's like, yep, those are spiritual things. And a lot of us are lacking those. And it's because of all the stuff that's happened to us. So yeah. And you know, that's kind of the area where I see a lot of people struggle with that. Staff. They have a hard time asking about spiritual beliefs. I don't know why.
It's funny because we actually went over spirit in group yesterday because I don't know what was in group, so.
Wow.
But we talked about we have been doing like substance use and how we handle 4 big feelings like shame, anger, guilt, and that stuff.
Yeah.
And then we went on to our beliefs, and
Mhm.
yesterday we were on our spirit and values. And the spirit part was kind of hard to get across to them because they took it as like they were really familiar with missing something. They were really like comfortable talking about that. But when we talked about having spirit, having like defining our spirit and stuff like that,
Mhm.
they were kind of like lost. Like, what does that feel like, type of thing.
Yeah.
So it was really good. They really liked it, but I just
It indicates that there's that emptiness where the spirit should be.
yeah.
They haven't filled it. Yeah.
And to do that group and then to like read what they wrote after on their self-eval thing, it was like really interesting. I liked it.
It's amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
So if somebody were to ask me, I'm doing an assessment and they ask me that, and because a lot of them, they say,
You tell your religion.
yeah, they say I'm a Christian and those are my beliefs. Do we leave it as that, or
Sure.
because I
Yeah.
just, especially when I read the stuff that's on there,
Mhm.
then I'll ask them. But they still say no, these are my beliefs.
Mhm.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And that's fine because we don't ever want to force our beliefs onto somebody else, but we do want to find out what their beliefs are and if they have any. And if they don't, then that's a lack. We want them to develop some sort of something that makes them feel connected to life, connected to the universe, connected to others. And sometimes people don't even want to hear the word God, but universe is okay for them. So we use that. Nature, creation. So they'll be okay with different words, but there's this real, there's almost like it's almost like church and spirituality are dichotomous right now. For a lot of people, it's like either I believe really strongly or I have all the same and I don't believe. And they're not able to pull it together somehow. So, and that's part of the disease process too. We get lost. So when we're lost, we kind of don't know what we believe. And that's all we want to find out. We're not wanting to change them in any way, but just see what's going to work for them. I had this young man in Alaska that I was working with, and he was agnostic, not atheist. He was agnostic, and him and his dad were like big game hunters and guides and stuff in Montana. But in our program, he graduated from residential to day treatment. So he found an apartment with one of the docs, and he had to come across the tundra every morning to come to day treatment. And there are certain times of the year when it's still, dark pretty late. But he was coming over across the tundra every day, come the same way. And he got on this little mound where you could see the sun start to rise way across the bay at the beginning of the water. And he said that just struck him being there. And he said that made him feel like he was connected to everything. He was a part of everything. He belonged. It just made him feel, oh, God in his life. Oh, and he was a young man. He was like 22, I think. But that was his, and he said, so I figured out that's my spirituality. It's right there. He said, and there's nothing in my lifestyle that has to change except to, make sure when you're hunting, it's for purpose of feeding people and doing right things with it, not just a waste. Yeah. So that's one of the things he started, was to do a ceremony when he killed something and, took the meat and gave it to people. But that was amazing to me, just in hearing him say that. So that can happen sometimes. We just have to encourage people to try things. So whatever feeds your soul is very spiritual. Okay, so and in our template, there are some directions on maybe some suggestions or questions to ask. And if you have any other questions to ask that you think would add to that, you could put them in there. That would be fine. Okay, are we on 34?
34.
Okay.
Analyze and interpret the data to determine treatment recommendations.
Okay. So analyzing and interpreting the data. That's a very subjective thing, right? Because we all have different experiences, different beliefs, different conceptual skills. And so it's really good to present your data to a group of people and have them help you to analyze it. On Tuesday afternoons, we have it's a clinical case conferencing, but I gotta be honest, right now, it's still kind of really tilted to just being like reporting stuff right now, because for a long time, I guess they were doing something else in that meeting. They were doing utilization review, which I don't know why they ever did, because programs don't do that. Insurance companies do that. HMOs do that. But anyway, but basically somebody will present the information on a new client. And right now I listened for the ASAM criteria mostly, because that's going to tell me a bunch of what I need to know. And then a little bit of the personal, like historical background, because I can get some information, like if the parents were divorced, never married, if the child was fostered or adopted, I can get information from that. So we listen to that, and then the whole purpose is for everybody to have some input based on what they understand is going on. So you interpret and analyze the data that way. Does that make sense?
Good. Case consulting, or way different? Would it be like case consulting?
No, it's the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. And our clinical case conferencing is like, it's a bigger group. And consulting is usually one-on-one, but yeah, you can consult with a group of people, and that's what those are about. Oh. All right.
Seek appropriate supervision and consultation.
So again, supervision is usually with one person, your clinical supervisor, or if you don't have an assigned clinical supervisor, you find somebody, maybe like a senior staff person. Right now, about the only person to consult with is Dr. Aquin. She's the only one licensed right now. Susan's licensed, but I don't think she's ever been a supervisor, but she has a lot of knowledge. so you can ask her stuff. Shalalia, Kim, and Laura have a bunch of knowledge about what we do here, so you can ask them about specifically here. And hopefully they'll have a supervisor soon. And then I'll be around for a little while just to do consulting, supervision, and consultation, so.
Document assessment findings and treatment recommendations.
Okay. So because in our, the BH GUI, there's a separate place, it just labeled, there's a tab right at the front, it's labeled intake, but it shouldn't be that, it should be assessment, or it should be clinical eval, same as with these, and that's where we put the assessments. And then in the GUI progress notes part of it, you just put a note that assessment was completed, see tab, and so that when people are looking at just the progress notes, they can see that succession of notes there, and they know to go back and look there for the assessment. But they know it was done by looking at this note. Does that make sense? Okay. And hopefully somebody who's very familiar with this, we can show you how to get through that too.
I think only certain people are allowed to look at the intake.
Yeah, because I was only entering notes and I couldn't look at anyone else's.
Really?
Yeah, when I was doing notes, when I was doing the groups, I couldn't look at anybody else. I couldn't look.
Okay, we're gonna have to bring that to Dr. Aquin and
Is it
see.
still the same?
Well, for me it was, but Jackie could.
Yeah, and when I
It's
went,
only open to certain.
Yeah.
I think you simply have to get permissions to get it open, and that's something IT does, I think, but
yeah,
Davida would put in on,
a note to IT.
yeah,
Mine was like that too, and then I was only able to see mine, but then
Yeah.
later on I could see like Jackie's, the Young Warrior staff, everybody's. And Davina had to get a thing
Oh, okay.
from IT.
yeah, it's like a permission or something, yeah. And so you can do that, and you not only see in there, but write in there. It is blocked from, the BH GUI is blocked from anybody who's not in behavioral health. But everybody in behavioral health should have access. It could be, yeah. I'm thinking that
But
might be it.
I have been BHTL through since we started working and doing my.
Yeah.
stuff, so.
But see, like prevention is, and you'll do prevention while still in this, but it's like, yeah, well, every component has a prevention aspect. It's just not separated out, because prevention is a very specialized area and people need to be trained and licensed to do it. Where we at now? Treatment planning?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, we went way ahead.
So her having access to see other people's notes, that would help with the CYA.
Yeah.
Or,
Oh, wait, I'm all mixed up. So excuse me a moment here. Did something to my stuff. Yeah, we should be, there it is. We should be on treatment planning. I put my stacks of papers on the wrong side of my friend's looking. Yeah. Oh, and so, yeah. Being able to look at other people's notes and see what people have done so far kind of gives you a guide to where you go next, especially like in the comment section or.
What about, I know I've had this with a client that I was doing an assessment on, and I know that I have told, I don't know if it was you or later on, like say when a client comes in and they say that I don't want this staff member to see my assessment, can they block that out?
No. One of the things we need to let them know is that their information is confidential, but there are some exceptions to that. And one is that when you're working in the same agency, you have access to the same information. So if they don't want a specific provider to see their information, they probably need to go elsewhere, because we don't block out our team members.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
I
don't know
mean,
if anything was ever done, I just remember that.
yeah.
how would you say it to?
I would just tell them, your stuff is kept confidential. However, as a team working together, we all have access to information.
And then the other person that they don't want to know is gonna know either way.
Yeah, because they have access to it, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, and just let them know right up front, no, don't mislead them, but just say, you know, I hear what you're saying,
Yeah,
but,
but I did run into that one before. It was an in-law. Sister-in-law worked for brother-in-law, wanted services, but didn't want sister-in-law. I know when his appointments were, what he was getting service on.
yeah. And we can't
So-
withhold that because we're all working as one unit.
Okay.
So what's the difference with, like, when we have to excuse ourselves during our clinical, what do you call it then?
Okay, staffing, it's so that, like, say we're staffing and say the man I had a big old love affair with was the client. I would leave because Kim might say, well, you know, he's always hitting on me and I saw him hit on so-and-so and I hear he's drinking again and he's doing that. So then I would get really mad at Kim for bringing all that up, right?
Okay.
Which would be totally silly.
I think one of the ways I had the same request from a parent regarding her child.
Mhm.
And I think I told her that the same thing, we're all we work as a team, everything's confidential. I said, but the people that are working with your kids, you know, with your child are the ones that are gonna see the information, not, you know, it's
Not
not,
the
yeah.
public, yeah.
So it's not everybody in our team that sees it. It's only the people that work with the patient, nobody else.
Yeah.
So that's something that I always say, because it backs me up and it backs
Yeah.
them up and it backs up the person,
Yeah.
because otherwise they're gonna think, oh, well, the staff, everybody can
So
just
then I
check.
think once somebody logs in there, they're cool with
Yeah.
everything. Okay.
So I that's the way I explain it, just so that they have some comfort and that they come here, because
Yeah.
I want to provide services for all my community members. I don't want that. I don't want there to be no barriers.
Yeah.
So that's just what I tell her.
That's a good one.
One of the things though is that you want to make sure they know that everybody who works here has access.
That's what I did.
So like as a supervisor, I might not work with the child, but if I need to look something up, I'll go and find it, you know, so.
And yeah, that's something I do is I told her that I'm not, one of the things I did tell another patient is I'm gonna provide the service. I'm not licensed. I have a supervisor. So my supervisor is gonna be checking my work. I'm just letting you know upfront, this is what I do and this is what's gonna happen. So I'm really upfront with them.
Yeah,
Then if they have a problem, and so this is how we can kind of,
yeah,
so.
I think this last one was somebody within our team. So I had I didn't know anything on that part. But the first one, I remember this was a while back, was somebody in the admin. So I told that person, I just told them that they don't have access to that files. Because they don't, right, admin? Yeah. But this last one was somebody on the team,
yeah.
like the team, so.
Well, the medical records people, I think, have clear access to everything too, because they have to do a lot of stuff that we don't do. So. Okay, so we're on treatment planning. Is everybody pretty clear on screening and assessment? You know what has to be happening? Okay, good. Okay, let's go to treatment planning.
A collaborative process in which professionals and the client develop a written document that identifies important treatment goals, describes measurable, time-sensitive action steps towards achieving those goals with expected outcomes, and reflects a verbal agreement between the counselor and client.
So, it says a collaborative process in which professionals and the client, so we can take what the client says, but the client doesn't always really know or understand what's going on with them. So they may not know exactly what goals they need to meet or what they need to do to meet those goals. So as a professional, understanding the disorders and how to get past those and how to get to a better place, we need to really take an active role. We can't just say, oh, client wants to lower their depression by 4 points. Well, why? What outcome do you want? Lower depression? Or you can't say, well, the client's gonna go to sessions for 12 weeks. What's the outcome? A numb butt, you know, from sitting there for 12 weeks, or is there gonna be something real to work on? So we need to put in those goals. We need to know what we're working towards with them. And it's okay if you wanna make a client statement in there somewhere to show that they're somewhere on track. But we don't just develop a goal off of their statement. That's kind of like, I don't know, it's not real professional. So, and then all the rest of the stuff will teach you how to do that because our templates are kind of like reminders in themselves of what to do. So, okay. All right. Somebody can finish that.
An individualized treatment plan addresses the identified substance use disorders, as well as issues related to treatment progress, including relationships with family and significant others, potential mental conditions, employment, education, spirituality, health concerns, and social and legal needs.
So these are a lot of areas where people can have problems, right? And we want to make sure we know what's going on in each of these areas because as whole people, these areas are not separated within us. They're just everywhere in us. So we treat the whole person and, you know, get that. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. And then the last thing,
Begin with the ASAM dimensions of the highest risk.
okay. Now that is not in the competencies. You won't see that, but I put that in there because that's necessary. Okay.
Where it says that minimum individualized treatment, all those areas that you said, are they hit in the assessment? Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, our forms are, I try to develop forms and Dr. Huckroyd always used to say, well, I can do an assessment without all this. And I'd say, yeah, I know, but not everybody can, especially entry-level people, and we want to teach them. So let's write it all out.
I've only done one assessment. so-
Yeah, and it's good to have, for me, as many years as I've been in the field, it's good to have reminders of what has to go in there, because I could forget something, you know, especially at my age. Forget why I went into the bathroom.
Walk in the kitchen. Like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I forgot."
So to have those reminders is really good for me, so it's all written up. Okay, next one. You want to turn to the next slide?
I thought you were talking about the reader.
Oh,
Never
both.
mind.
Both. Somebody else want to read competency 37?
Use relevant assessment information to guide the treatment planning process.
Okay. So there's a form that I like to use. It's not part of our, you know, forms. It doesn't go in the chart, but it's a little cheat sheet. It's like a problem list. So I have people, I like them to know kind of what to look for. And so when you've got an assessment in front of you and it's all typed up, look through that assessment and see if you can identify problem areas. And then you can triage them and look at, you know, which one seems to be the most pressing issue right now. What can we refer to later? What can we hold off on? And then match that to your ASAM criteria, the severities. And then it gives you a good idea where to start with your treatment planning. Kim, there you go. Kim's got that form. So you're gonna look at that and see what I'm talking about. You can take the assessment, the completed assessment, and use this form to help yourself. Now, you might find 10 problem areas on the assessment, but you may not even deal with all of them in your treatment plan. Or you might take 2 or 3 of them and combine them into one problem and one goal. And as we get more into the individual dimensions, I will teach more of that.
Are these the ones you found on your own? Looking through the assessment?
Yeah.
Oh,
Here's a blank one.
Yeah.
There's a blank one of those you guys can use. Okay, competency 38.
Explain assessment findings to the client and significant others.
And so, how would you go about explaining to your client what you found? in an assessment?
So when I do the treatment plan, I usually, like she said, gather a couple of them and put them together. Because I think I did this the other day. One of the kids was like, but I didn't, what does this mean? Like, I didn't say this is what I need to work on. And I just told him, I said, well, when we did the assessment, you talked about this, this, and this. You know, I named out the 3 things. And I said, and this is how we can work on that. He goes, oh, I remember that. And so he was dealing with he was dealing with just getting angry really quick, reacting, you know, just really reacting really fast. And I said, this is how we're gonna work. And I was able to show him on the treatment plan what it meant and how we're gonna work on things to identify what's getting him mad, what is his first thought, his automatic thoughts, how is that impacting his behavior and everything, and the CBT model stuff. And he was like, wow, okay, that I understand now. So that's just what I used, everything he told me, and why he was getting arguments with his friends, his parents, why he was always in trouble. So those are just some of, that's just the way I explained it to him. This is what he told me, this is how we're gonna use it, this is what we did with it. And I just broke it all down for him. He was able to understand his treatment plan. Yeah, so he was like, can you explain it to my mom now? But yeah, so you know, he was able to understand that, and that's what I did. I just explained everything. This is what you told me. And this is all of it put together right here, you know, and I just.
And when that point told you, was he constantly going back to it?
Well, I just gave it to him, so I haven't met with him again, so what happens.
So
Yeah.
just simply, just let them know with everything we talked about, and all the information we gathered, this is how we did the treatment. And this is what it is.
Even though it's not in his own words, it is in his own words. He just didn't realize it until I explained it to him.
Yeah. And so it's important to explain in words that they understand, like not to try to use clinical jargon. We might be thrilled to death to write things out clinically, but don't do that with clients because they don't give a rat's butt about what we know clinically, as long as we're doing the right things with them. So make it simple language, and especially with kids. And with those men, you know, I'm gonna be dealing with.
Sorry, Robert.
Oh.
Sorry, Robert.
I might have to get really creative. Sorry.
Okay, continue with 39.
Yep,
Provide the client and significant others with clarification and additional information as needed.
okay. That's what Shalini was just talking about. Okay, next one.
40, examine treatment options in collaboration with the client and significant others.
Okay, and again, some of those treatment options were like, you know, you could go here for this, go here for this, get this here, go to this group, go do AccuDetox, you know, treatment options, go to support groups, AA.
40. Oh, wait, 41.
Mhm.
Consider the readiness of the client and significant others to participate in treatment.
So again, you look at the ASAM, you know, the readiness stuff for the client, but then you also just ask like parents or if they're willing to participate in treatment, to what level, you know. We don't necessarily want a parent in every counseling session, but we may want to have meetings with them once a week to talk about generalized kind of progress, or even monthly or something. Or we might want them to participate by making sure their person gets here, you know. But we talk about them, about their involvement, about them. We talk with them about their involvement. Okay, 42.
42, prioritize the client's needs and the order they will be addressed in treatment.
Okay, and again, that form can help you with that. Okay,
43.
Yep.
Formulate mutually agreed on and measurable treatment goals and objectives.
now, so what I usually do, and like my other, like the clients I actually deal with are online, you know. So what I'll do is once they give me all their stuff, I'll, you know, I will draft a treatment plan and I will send it to them email and say, based on the assessment results, this is the information I got, you know, based on what you told me, and this is a plan that I think could work. And then I tell them, If you want to edit anything, change anything, add anything, let me know. But usually my conceptual skills are pretty good because I've been around for like 40, almost 43 years now. So most of them, they say, yeah, that's exactly what I need to work on. I remember I was just like that day. So, okay, so yeah, and then there's another thing, there's a tool that I use sometimes, and it's just called a treatment plan, an inventory for treatment planning, and it's kind of a long, like 3-pager, I think. But if the client isn't sure what they're wanting to work on, and they just say, I don't know, and you want to get some input from them, you can have them fill out that page. They just circle things that they'd like to work on. And then you could just take those and combine them and set up some goals and stuff. So, and you can get that form in our forms library online in our shared drive. Okay, so any other questions about, number 44, never mind. So, back up there.
Identify appropriate strategies for each treatment goal.
Okay, and sometimes the words strategies, interventions, methods, those will be intermixed, interchanged. I like the word strategies because it's like we're doing the strategic thing here to get somewhere. So for instance, if you're going to work on understanding why you use alcohol, so what might be some strategies for doing that?
Listing reasons why you use.
Okay, and if you're not quite sure, what might be another strategy? Yeah, what triggers you to use? You know, how are you feeling just before you go use? What's happening in your life before you use? Those are triggers that you want to look at and understand, okay? What else?
How many times you use,
Yeah, look at the number of times you use.
how much.
You could have them do a whole lot of research around why they use. And then in looking at the triggers, that also gives them some ideas of how to prevent using. Okay, if I get angry every time I hear that song about when she left me and took my dog, and, you know, then it's simple, don't listen to that song. And it's not always simple like that, but you know, you can look at cause and effect, and you can let them know, okay, if every time you get really angry about something, you go and drink, figure out other things you can do instead of drinking when you're angry, things that are helpful to you. Make a list of those things, you know, carry it around with you. When you get angry, take a few minutes and read your list and then choose to do something else, you know. So we have to teach them kind of long-term how to change their behaviors. Because we weren't born knowing these things. If we were, nobody'd have a problem. So, okay, so strategies, just little steps for how you're going to meet that objective. And then objectives are bigger steps where we just want one outcome. If we want them to understand their relationship to substance use, that's a simple outcome. And then all these little steps will help them understand. And then we have understanding, and then taking some action to change. That might be a second objective. And then you make little steps for how they're going to start changing. And then those things should get them to the goal. It's like a
The backward
staircase.
ladder thing.
Yeah. Okay. Next one, 45.
Coordinate treatment activities and community resources in a manner consistent with the client's diagnosis and existing placement criteria.
So placement has to do with the level of care. Outpatient is what we do here. We do outpatient and intensive outpatient. Sober living is more like transitional care or like day treatment, right? But the way it's structured, we could set a lot of other stuff in there because we have scheduled to do a lot of intensive outpatient and regular outpatient. We're doing all these services while they're there. So it's more like day partial hospitalization for daycare. And so we might tell them, okay, you're going to attend these groups here, here, and here. You'll be involved in recreation therapy here and here. You'll go to education classes here. You go to AA here, you play softball here, you get activity talk. So we coordinate all that stuff for them to get what they need. And depending on where they're placed is how you guys have like a captive audience, so you could really hear, we can recommend they come to certain groups and recommend they do certain things, and they may or may not follow through. But we've given them a plan. Any questions? 46.
Develop with the client a mutually acceptable treatment plan and method for monitoring and evaluating progress.
Okay. And so the most effective way of evaluating progress is to have people journal and to check on them. If their plan says they will come to recovery skills group 3 times a week, and they come 3 times a week, that's part of it already. And then, although that's like an intervention or what we do for them is we provide that group. And then if they come, what we want them to do is to learn this, that, or the other thing. But part of monitoring and evaluating progress is, did they come every session? Did they participate fully? Did their self-evals demonstrate some change, some forward movement? Did they remain abstinent? All those are ways of monitoring and evaluating progress. But self-journals are really important. Any other ideas or questions on that?
First up,
Mm-hmm.
inform the client of confidentiality rights, program procedures that safeguard them from the exceptions imposed by regulation.
Mm-hmm. There are just a few exceptions to the confidentiality, and one is their signed consent. Another is like a medical crisis. Another is like when people are all part of the same agency, part of the same group, like our team. Those are exceptions. So.
Reassess the treatment plan at regular intervals or when indicated by changing circumstances.
Okay, so just as the assessment is updated regularly, treatment plans really should be reviewed every other week, but updated a minimum of every 6 months. Now for inpatient, it's more than that. It's like every 3 months, I think. Okay, so that's the treatment plan. Referral, there'll be a little bit of involvement in referral, not much, so we could go through that very quickly. Someone read the definition.
The process of facilitating the client with available situations and needs identified.
Okay, so a lot of this, case managers do a lot of this, but also the counselors do a lot of referrals. Sometimes this means referral to another agency or another organization altogether. Okay, competency. What do you need to do to make a referral?
Establish and maintain relationships with agencies, other professionals, government agencies, and the community at large to ensure appropriate referrals identify service gaps, expand community support.
Okay, so that sounds like a lot, huh? So how many of you can say you really know what the community has to offer? I can't. I was here for a year, but I still don't know everything that's available. I know there's like a mentoring program for kids. I know there's a college here, maybe.
Who does the mentoring?
Louis. I think there was a mentoring with girls too, but I don't know who does it.
I used to, but
I don't think that really,
I think he's restarting it. He's trying to find someone.
okay. And then I know we have AccuDetox here and at San Carlos, because a lot of people now are trained and credentialed. I know there are AA meetings at times. I still don't know where all the places are, but I know the Boys and Girls Club is going to be starting up again, but I don't know what else. There's a place that feeds seniors, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
And then there's the the college,
They're
the,
gonna open back up April, I think the second week of April, OAC.
and there's a college group thing at the education office. I know that they have activities and programs there too for college students or high school students.
Okay, good. What about social service? Do they have programs for the community or are they,
I know they have parenting classes, but I think it's for their paid clients.
yeah,
Yeah, they're court
And
ordered.
then, I think housing is utilizing them as well.
so there are a lot of, and then because this is a remote community, you might also get familiar with the resources in the, like in the close by towns or whatever.
There's a place in Globe, I know that started the week.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and they have
That's
a,
important.
they have AA and codependency group, support group in Globe.
Good.
And they have a closed grief group that starts every so many weeks at
Mhm.
the hospital there.
That's good. All right. Yeah. Okay, so get to know all of these agencies, professionals and services. So when you know where to refer somebody, you.
So
have to
say-
refer.
Say, referral part, like when it comes to these, like especially with, DV group, because a lot of them come here to try to get, services. And would we refer them out after we complete assessment, or do we just give them the number to the person? How will we do that?
If they're not from this, tribe, and then, let me just, this tribe made an exception. In that if they come from the courts here, they accept our recovery skills curriculum for anger management. But like Globe courts, county courts, they don't accept it because we're not licensed, so then you would give them a referral out. And if all they need is anger management, they could go there. If they need all this other stuff plus anger management, you could put that, send them for anger management later. The other thing is that one of the things I told Cynthia is that if she's got a client and he's from here, well, not from here, he's from someplace, I can't remember, but he needs to do all of this stuff in addition to anger management. I told her she could address a lot of that on her own because she's got some training, but she's not licensed, so. But she had to get it approved through that court. I think it was another tribal court there. Or Cynthia, I can't remember. But you can, if they're tribal courts, they're usually a little more understanding of tribal people and what their issues are. And they won't say anger management because they know that's just stupid. I mean, that's anger management to Native communities is like emptying the ocean with a teaspoon, you know? Crazy. It's not gonna help anything. It doesn't, it's too much to do. Might as well get right to the source of that. Okay. Oh, competency 50.
Continuously assess and evaluate referral resources to determine their appropriateness.
So just keep looking at, does this client need something else and what would differentiate?
Differentiate between situations in which it is most appropriate for the client to self-refer to a resource and situations requiring counsel.
Okay. So a lot of times it's like if the client says, well, I really want to go and try this, it's like, okay, go for it. But sometimes we say, you know, I really think you need a specific referral. And then we write that out and say, we show why we're looking for that referral, what we want to get to happen with that. Okay. Look at the time. We still have an hour.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Arrange referrals to other professionals agencies, community programs, or appropriate resources to meet the client's needs.
Okay. Go ahead and keep going, because a lot of this is just,
Explain in clear and specific language the necessity for and process of referral to increase the likelihood of client understanding and follow through.
okay, so that's an important one. I mean, they're all important, but to explain so that the client really knows why you're referring them there.
Exchange relevant information with the agency or professional to whom the referral is being made in a manner consistent with confidentiality rules and regulations and generally accepted professional standards of care.
So we have forms for when people are referring to us, there's certain things we request from the referent. And we also have forms for when we're referring people out, and they basically say, well, Louis got a really good form. It wants like the parent's name and address and all stuff, demographics. But then it wants like, and ours is the same. We ask for what are the behaviors for which you're wanting us to, for which you're referring this person. Like if it's a kid that's always skipping school and getting into fights, what do you want us to do for that person? So that we know, because it's not enough to say, I want you to talk to my kid. Talk to him about what? The color of cheese? I must be hungry. Okay. And so sometimes too, like when we're sending somebody out, we could say, you know, long history of familial substance use, child abandonment, you know, things like that, so that we know that person knows why we're sending the kid. Or very, very high energy, unable to sit still in school, you know. Okay, and then 55.
Evaluate the outcome of the referral.
So we just check on that person and see how they're doing, and is it a good referral, and do we need to refer them somewhere else? Okay, next one. Somebody read the elements of the service coordination.
Implementing the treatment plan, consulting, continuing assessment and treatment plan.
Okay.
Good work.
Mhm.
Okay. The administrative, clinical and evaluative activities that bring the client treatment services, community agencies, and the other resources together to focus on issues and needs identified in the treatment plan.
Okay, so now we're just coordinating the services. That's simple, right? We have a plan for what we have to do. Now we're gonna start doing it. Okay. Go ahead and go on.
Service coordination, which includes case management and client advocacy, establishes a framework of action to enable the client to achieve specified goals. It involves collaboration with the client and significant others, coordination of treatment and referral services, liaison activities with community resources, and managed care systems, client advocacy, and ongoing evaluation of treatment progress and client needs.
Okay. So a lot of care coordination, client advocacy. One of the things is that the bigger treatment centers have their very own case managers to take care of a whole range of things. And the counselors basically do the assessment, treatment plan, and counseling. And then they do a lot of the other stuff. But in small communities, it seems like each clinician needs to do all their own case management and coordinating and all that, because that's lack of staff. Okay. Next element. First element, implementing the treatment plan.
56, initiate collaboration with work resources. 57, obtain, review, and interpret all relevant screening, assessment, and initial treatment planning information.
Okay,
58, confirm the client's eligibility for admission and continued readiness for treatment and change. 59, complete necessary administrative procedures for admission to treatment.
okay, and this is what is usually called intake here. So we need to sign the releases, the privacy stuff, the consents, releases of information, all that stuff. And they call that intake here, but that's actually just part of the service coordination. So competency 60.
establish accurate treatment and recovery expectations with the client and involve significant others, including but not limited to the nature of services, program goals, program procedures, rules regarding client conduct, the schedule of treatment activities, cost of treatment, factors affecting duration of care, clients' rights and responsibilities, the effect of treatment and recovery on significant others.
So all of this used to be called orientation, but it's part of this dimension. And we've always done that, right? There's a very specific orientation routine at the sober living. It's in the handbook. Okay.
61, coordinate all treatment activities with services provided to the client by other resources.
Yeah, and so the primary counselor usually just keeps track of the in-house treatment plan. Case manager keeps track of everything else out there. But in these settings, primary person does it all. So few people, okay. 62. Now we're on the element of consulting.
Summarize the client's personal and cultural background, treatment plan, recovery process, and problem. Inhibiting progress to ensure quality of care, gain feedback and plan changes in the course of treatment.
Okay.
Keep going.
So what might be some problems that would inhibit progress to quality care? You're looking at the client's personal and cultural background.
Family, negative support, friends,
Mhm.
no transportation, no phone.
Language skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Language.
So one of the things in our demographics right away is we ask for the first language. And sometimes the client's first language will be English, but the person caring for them will not be English, it'll be something else. We need to know those things so that we remove those problems that inhibit progress, right?
Understand the terminology, procedures, and roles of other disciplines related to the treatment of substance use disorders.
Okay, so when the psychiatrist says certain things, we need to understand what their terms mean for our people, or the psychologist or the medical doc. And if we don't know, just ask. Ask the doc what that means in regular terms, because we need to know, especially like the medications,
Yeah.
understand what they are.
Contribute as part of a multidisciplinary treatment team. Apply confidentiality rules and regulations appropriately. Demonstrate respect and non-judgmental attitude towards clients in all contacts with community professionals and agencies.
Yeah. So when we're sending referrals or consulting, we want to make sure that we use respectful language and that we use person first language. You know, I think it would really be terrible to say, well, I have a schizophrenic, I want to refer to you. That's really awful. Say, have a person who's diagnosed with schizophrenia that may benefit from a referral. So just mindful of that. Okay, any questions on that piece of the?
I think multidisciplinary team. So is that something that, I know I've seen it before,
Yeah,
but it'd be nice if we could do that with different agencies.
it would be nice, and
Yeah.
some of those agencies are not willing, and this place has been so like scattered, it's hard to do, but a good place to do that would be in that Tuesday meeting, if we had social services people, sober living people, some of the kids, those providers that see the kids. If we had those people all part of that, it would be a great process. And also sometimes probation officers. We used to regularly invite our probation officers to come to our CCCs for specific clients. And what we would do is we would have the probation officers, they would present the people they needed us to report on, and we would, and then they would leave. And then people from like the social services would come and then they would tell us the people they needed to discuss. We discuss them and then they'd leave and then we do the rest of our people. And it would take us a full morning to do that, and that was okay, because we all worked with all these people in the community, and it's like, if we had that kind of a thing here, it would run much smoother. And sometimes the counselors from the school would come.
I know
because
that
the kids-
housing is starting to do that. One of the ladies, she used to work with us. Is she a director over there? Yeah,
Yeah.
but she's,
Surgery.
with the housing, under a rental agreement, I guess they're gonna, she's gonna start referring. For people, only because they're destroying the home and
Yeah.
it's rental, and there's a lot of costs going back into fixing it.
I think that's good.
Yeah, so they're working on some type of, I know they did in the past, but I think this is something that's gonna be mandatory for them now.
Well, that's good. That's good because, I mean, that's a symptom that there's something going wrong when people are destroying the home. So get them a referral to get help right away and make their continued living there based on if they cooperate. I think they should do that with everything, with social services and the kids who are in their custody. I think they should refer the parents and make them do this. Yeah,
So I think one of them too is that I think we should be involved in is also like when our patients are sent out. So one of our case managers or somebody should be involved in their weekly art meetings that they have at the facility.
yeah.
Especially when they're out for high-risk behaviors, SI, all that stuff,
Mhm.
because they come back home and we don't have no information of how their progress went there. So that's something that I think we really need to be involved in.
Yeah,
And then I know that in the past, I was asked to sit in with art meetings of one of the guys that I sent out a while back. And this is way back, and it felt like, because we close them when they leave and then they come back and we open them up. You know
yeah.
what I mean? It feels like we're just, I don't know.
Even
No.
though we close them, I still do art meetings.
Me too,
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, and we can close them out without discharging them, right?
Okay,
We close them for a while, but we continue to follow them. When they come back, we just open them up again.
so
So,
do they have to re-sign everything again?
no, we just have to open them up and start them back in the service. And the reason, when we discharge them, they get taken off the list completely. But when we close them, we just don't bill for any services for a period of time. Right.
Oh, okay.
But we still do the follow-up and the documentation.
So Denise knows when we say close, they're not.
I don't know.
That's what I was gonna say, that's something needs to be clarified.
Because I know with one of them, we tried to bring back that was done with the 6 month, and then we were gonna do continual outpatient. And then she told me, well, you're gonna have to do the, I'm like, but he was
Okay.
never closed,
Okay,
so.
let's talk with Aquin about that. Because the reason we close them for that period of time is that the organization picking them up is, they're
billing.
responsible for them and they're the ones doing the billing. So when they come back, we just switch that. Let's take a short break because everybody's getting antsy and so am I.
Okay.
I need to go. Okay, let's try to keep it at 5 minutes and.
I don't know if I can pause this.
Oh. Oh.
She goes, can't sit that long without.
We're still on recording, FYI. So don't share anything. I'm trying to, I don't know if I can pause it. I'm afraid to, then we might just have to start all over. Oh, it says pause.
Knock on the door at Robert. Okay, we'll get started. Okay, we're on competency 67, and we're kind of glossing through these things that we don't need to spend a lot of time on. They're all important. You all have these, you could study them, but Competency 67 under continuing assessment and treatment plan.
Maintain ongoing contact with the client and involve significant others to ensure adherence to the treatment plan. 8, understand and recognize stages of change and other signs of treatment progress. 69, assess treatment and recovery progress and in consultation with the client and significant others, make appropriate changes to the treatment plan to ensure progress toward treatment goals. 70, describe and document the treatment process, progress, and outcome. 71, use accepted treatment outcome measures. 72, conduct continuing care.
Do the next slide.
Sorry.
Conduct continuing care, relapse prevention, and discharge planning with the client and involve significant others. 73, document service coordination activities throughout the continuum of care. 74, apply placement, continued stay, and discharge criteria for each modality on the continuum of care.
Okay. And with that, 74, so if we were, okay, like for the courts or for any other referent, if we were wanting the people to stay with us longer, or if we have somebody in residential, we feel like they need to stay there longer, then we need to address what are the elements of that continued stay. Like what have they not accomplished yet? But it's the same thing, if they haven't accomplished their goals while they're with us and they're still on probation, it would behoove us to let the probation officer know that they haven't completed and to continue their probation for a period of time. Because we have a lot of court-ordered people and a lot of them just been sitting things through, so. But as long as you know what to do around like continued stay criteria and medical necessity criteria. Okay, let's go to number 5, counseling. Oh, you're way ahead of me. Okay, so,
Can we read it?
sure.
Elements: individual counseling, group counseling, families, couples, and significant others. Definition: a collaborative process that facilitates the client's progress towards mutually determined treatment goals and objectives. Counseling includes methods that are sensitive to individual client characteristics and to the influence of significant others, as well as the client's cultural and social context. Competence in counseling is built on an understanding of appreciation of and the ability to appropriately use the contributions of various addiction counseling models as they apply to modalities of care for individuals, groups, families, couples, and significant others.
One of the things that we have done here is that we've pretty much adopted Red Road approach to a lot of our education and counseling therapeutic services. Because the Red Road approach is a very natural approach, started thousands and thousands of years ago, which people called the Essenes. And then it was adopted by some people in 1935 when they started the 12 steps AA. They looked at that approach and they thought it was really good. And then William White, who is an author, a psychologist, and Don Coyes, who owns a Native American publishing company and training and publishing and everything else. They put together this whole Red Road approach to so many things. So we have curriculum for men and women, adult men and women. We have curriculum for for adolescent teens, boys and girls, right? They're using the same curriculum at the Sober Living. And there's just a lot of, and they also have some well-variety meetings. They have groups of people that do well-variety meetings. Some local people, and they come down with that. So that's one of the things we use. And then within their materials, within their curriculum, we use various counseling approaches and techniques. And with this group, I'll get into that in a few months. I'm getting into that tomorrow with the other group because they've been with me for almost a year. So we'll start to teach various kinds of like, and things like CBT and RBT and DBT and all that good stuff. They work real well with people, motivational enhancement therapy. They work real well with Native people. And so because it, again, it includes body, mind, spirit, you know, cognitive, behavioral, emotional. So whole person. And there's a lot of, they have a lot of like worksheets and activities and things that work in that area. So we use those as well. We're darn good at counseling. Okay, let's go on. Oh, you're already there. Good for you.
75, establish a helping relationship with the client characterized by warmth, respect, genuineness, concreteness, and empathy. 76, facilitate the client's engagement in the treatment and recovery process. 77,
How do we do that? How do we facilitate a client's engagement in the treatment and recovery process?
I'm involved with the treatment plan, but you're the one that's maybe setting the goal. It's a little suggestion from Jan, but we gotta make sure that, you know, we have to take the lead, but
Yeah.
have them involved.
Yeah, and hold them accountable, right? Holding people accountable is not a negative thing. It's one of the most positive things we could do, starting from all the way down. Holding people accountable is very beneficial to them developing important life skills like self-direction, self-discipline, self-determination, you know, all those things, responsibility. So we hold them accountable and we allow consequences when they don't meet that goal of accountability. Like if you don't, like in our transportation department, if you miss your ride 3 times in a row, then you're taken off it for a month. And then you have to, and you have to find your own way to treatment for a month, and then you're put back on transportation. So the consequence of being irresponsible here is that you don't have that gift anymore. You have to make it on your own, but you can get back by doing these things. So kind of like a logical consequence of things. If they don't show up to enough groups, we discharge them. Then if they're on probation, they go back to the probationer. And oftentimes they just come straight back to us anyway, but still holding them accountable, you know. And at the very least, we tell them, you know, if you call in with a valid excuse at least 15 minutes before session, it won't be counted as absent. It's got to be a valid excuse. That I'm always kind of mean anyway, so I say valid excuses are you're dead, you're in the hospital or in jail. Other than that, you be here. No. Well, because people, well, we're going on a trip. Well, my friend wants to go see this concert. It's like, that's not a valid excuse for your treatment. What if you were on dialysis? Would that be enough of an excuse not to go to dialysis? I mean, truly, because whether we realize it or not, substance addiction, mental health disorders are life and death. And people have to take it seriously. And we are not here, although we're here to serve the people, we're not here to take on the responsibility to stay well. That's on them. So we have to hold them accountable.
There's one guy that said, well, I can't come because they suspended me from transportation for. And then I told him, I said, but whose fault was that? What were your excuses? Well, I had to work, and I said, well, I made arrangements for them to pick you up after you got off work, and they knew where to pick you up. So whose fault was that? He goes, mine. I said, okay. So
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to him, but he was on probation. So.
And it's okay to confront your people. One thing I would suggest though, if you remove the words fault and blame from your vocabulary and say responsibility. Who's responsible for that? Whose responsibility is that? You know, and then because that's a more positive term, and it's like, okay, you're right, that's mine, I own it, I'll take care of it. And so, but that's good, and just to tell them, you know, and confronting people in a very loving and respectful way helps them to get through their own BS. So, good job, Laura.
Work with the clients to establish realistic, achievable goals consistent with achieving and maintaining recovery. Promote client knowledge, skills, and attitudes that contribute to a positive change in substance use behaviors.
I'd like to make a comment about that. I'd seen some people who initially had come into group and they were so angry and upset and didn't want to be here and were just miserable and, you know, not sure why they were feeling that way, but some of the things that can help clients to settle in is to start to like maybe be on a level where you're happy, where you're joyous, where you're modeling content behavior, you know, excited behavior. I've seen people, I used to work with a lady in Alaska. Oh my gosh, she was always so angry and miserable. But she hadn't been drinking for years either. She'd like 12 years not drinking, but she's still angry and miserable. And she'd go in and she'd start saying, okay, everybody, time for a group, get in here right now. You know. So. And then one time somebody just disagreed with her about something and she said, I'm the expert here. I'll tell you the truth. Jeez, it's like, holy schmoly. So I talked with her about that. Of course, she was angry at me too then. Well, how are you telling me what to do? I've been in this field. So, so, you know, treat people as if they're wanted here, that it's necessary for them to be here, that it's good to have them here, that you're excited to work with them, that they're good people, you know, and no judgments. And I always tell people right away, you know, I'm in recovery myself. I'm a recovering addict, alcoholic, and recovering from codependency and Catholicism and smorgasbords. and marriages, all of those things. But and you know, self-disclose a little bit, but not gory details. Nobody needs to know that. But just, you know, let them know that life is life. It happens to all of us. We do our best with it, but we can help you do better if you want to. So that's just one of the things about getting people to really bond with you and be real.
Encourage and reinforce client actions determined to be beneficial in progressing towards treatment goals.
Mhm. So you know what? One of the things is like, it's okay to say, wow, man, that's a long time sober. Good for you. Yay. Or somebody says something they've done differently. Really, really encourage them for that. Really honor them for that. You know, if somebody made a decision not to be a doormat for at least one time, really build them up for that. Because being a doormat becomes a way of life that's really hard to break. So sometimes you have to break the other person's face first. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
I forgot. Oh my gosh. Can you delete that? Oh, yeah, it's recorded. And I didn't mean that, but you know, I wanted to make people laugh. Huh?
Trading has to be fun sometimes.
I'm just sitting here, I'll be quiet to try not to add.
I was,
Why you're quiet.
that's what happened the last time they tried to record me training. I remember one time, a long time ago, I was at this gathering in Denver. They have this really wonderful, they have a lot of AA clubs, but they have this wonderful one where most of the natives went. It's called the AA, the York Street Club. And we were having a gathering there, and a lot of people were laughing and cheering on. This was in my early years. It was back in the 80s. I was still pretty new. And people were joking and laughing, and I was wondering why they were so happy. And this guy got up and said, you know, it took me a long time to learn how to laugh at myself and to not take everything so seriously, because he said, when I was focusing on how miserable everything was in life, I didn't laugh a lot. But in focusing on that, it seems like I held on to a lot of the negativity by doing that. He said, so now I try to find humor in everything that I've done. And sometimes I even make up stories. That's cool. He was just, I don't know, just a guy off the street, but that's what he did. And I thought, well, that's a wonderful thing. It's kind of like reframing your experience in life. And you've come through, but your passage through wasn't that easy. So why not make it look easy, Anyway, I took his words and I still do that. I do that a lot. You guys will find out later. I get into strange areas. Okay. So we're on number 80. Any questions about that particular slide? Number 79. All good? Okay. Number 80.
Work appropriately with the client to recognize and discourage all behaviors inconsistent with progress toward treatment goals.
Let me point out to you one behavior that we always want to discourage in a very positive, respectful way, because it isn't consistent with progress towards treatment goals. But oftentimes you will get a client who goes through this process called, what's it called? I forgot what it's called. Where basically they're feeling like, oh, you're being so nice to me, I'm in love with you because you're so wonderful to me. It's not really that they're in love with you, it's that it's so good to have somebody pay attention to you. And most of us don't have healthy relationships. Transference, it's called transference. One more time. So that's going to happen a lot. And you might even, I used to think at first, geez, why? I'm not even attracted. But then I learned that I was okay. I was attracted. But then I learned the best way to deal with it is to say, thank you. I'm very honored. But let me tell you what this is about. It's about relationships and it's about learning how to feel good when somebody is kind to you. I said that we want you to take that and transfer that onto somebody who it's appropriate to have a relationship with, and not to be ashamed about any of this, but this happens. And we're just used to it, but you have to transfer that energy onto everybody you meet out there to have healthy relationships with them and to make them feel good when you're talking to them and all that. But that's one of the things, because I remember when it first happened, I felt like, oh my gosh, what is this? Somebody likes me. I must have been in my 30s at the time, in my late 30s. And my boss pointed out to me, it's not about you. It's not about you. Get out of your own, but it's about this process where we feel good when people are nice to us. I had an ex-husband whose favorite thing was flirting with everybody, but it was not a romantic thing. It was like, people feel good. Gee, you look so pretty today. That's wonderful. But if I'm sick, I might take it. Oh, he's after something. And oh, yeah. But healthy people will say, oh, thank you. That felt so good. It's wonderful. And so he would do that. Grandmas loved him. Every grandma I ever met just loved him because he was so sweet, made everybody feel good. And kids loved him because he made them feel good too. But just be mindful of it and don't be afraid of it, but also don't let it continue. As soon as you're aware that somebody thinks that they're falling in love with you, let them know that that process is natural and that they should gear that and focus that on somebody they can have a relationship with, and it's not you. So just be aware. Or the other thing is they'll try to blame you for every problem in the world. Don't take that on either because it's not true, it's them. And that's another behavior to have them change. Like, you are responsible for you, nobody else. Shalania didn't get into a nasty mood because I asked her to turn on the computer. She just chose to get into a mood because that computer has absolutely no power to do anything. So if somebody says, I was feeling all right till you came in, it's like,
I've heard that.
I'm still feeling all right. You're the one with the issue. Go deal with it. I was like, okay. Or when our clients say to us, I was really happy until my girlfriend left me. It's like, well, no, that's not why you're unhappy. You choose to be unhappy, but you need to figure out why. Because her leaving has nothing to do with you. That's on her. But anybody here ever break up in a relationship? Did you ever feel like it was your fault that they left? I used to. Then I figured out, nah, it's not me. It's nothing about me. She's the one with the problem. I don't know what it is, but I'm not the one with the problem. I'm okay. So maybe he wanted somebody that was, but what he told me about a year later was that, I thought she was younger than you. Sorry about that. And then he said, which really sounded strange, buddy, but she's not very smart. Yeah. Well, enjoy it. So who would say that about their new partner? I mean, doesn't it say something about him? But I think sometimes people don't think things through. Okay, so now we're on 80 after all my stuff.
Work appropriately with
Oh, we already got
Oh,
that.
you already did that one.
We're on
81.
81.
recognize how, when, and why to involve the client's significant others in enhancing or supporting the treatment plan.
Because like if your client is really working on not drinking and his wife is still wanting him to come and drink with her, you might not want to include her in stuff. You know, because she's just not in place. But if she's also wanting to stop drinking, please bring her in. You have to share things with her.
So with the transference part, would you bring the significant other?
No.
No.
No, I would not. I would just deal it with them and just let them know. And I would really document the heck out of it. But the significant other, it would only hurt her, first of all, if they were a good couple. But it's his issue. And you would want to and try to encourage him to talk about his need for compassion and empathy and kindness is expected from her, you know? So it could also help them in the long run, but I would not bring her in and say, you know, your husband's been hitting on me and that kind of stuff, because it will hurt her and it would cause them damage. But you want to stop him where it's at. I just want to stop him there. And if they persist, you might just say, I'm going to need to transfer you to somebody else. I saw a real cool episode of Chicago Med, where this one therapist stopped seeing this psychiatrist, and she finally told him, and he was saying, well, why? But we have a good relationship and I really get along with you. And she said, to be honest, because I have deeper feelings for you. And he was like, but she stopped it because she said,
the episode.
you see, she did. Most of what I know, I learned from TV. Dr. Phil.
There's a like a counseling thing, I think it's called counseling on HBO, and like it was a solid transference thing in there.
Oh, wow.
And the guy, he was an older guy, and the girl that he was treating was younger. And she came in one day and she was like struggling. She was out clubbing the night before. She came close to like sleeping with the guy, or well, having sex with the guy in the bathroom, but she didn't. And she was telling him, because she was at his house or wherever they were at doing treatment. She was telling him that she didn't have sex with that guy because of her boyfriend.
Mhm.
So she had a boyfriend, and they were talking and kind of trying to figure it out and all of that. And she was like, well, I didn't really have sex because I didn't want to cheat on my boyfriend. It was because of you. And he was like, what do you mean? And she was like, because I thought of you, or something like that. It was something like that. And he was like, can you describe it? And she was like, well, I've been coming here for so many months now, and there's just this tension between us, and I know you feel it, and it's like stuff like that. And it's like, oh my goodness, this is really like interesting. Like, yeah.
Yeah. She was misinterpreting his
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he kind of explained that to her, and she just got upset and left.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty scary, because I watched a movie way back. I was thinking of all the therapists here, you know? This guy got in love with this therapist, and she had to drop him because it was getting too much. He was bothering her at work and all of this, and he killed her
Yeah.
afterwards. He killed her afterwards, and oh my goodness. That's wondering.
Is that Lifetime?
Should I put this on pause?
I'm quitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the best thing to do with transference is not to get involved, to stop it, to explain to them what's going on, let them do something else. If they get angry, don't take that anger on you and don't try to, and if you need to transfer them to another therapist, do so. But don't get into that counter transference where you're putting, well, now he hates me, now I'm a terrible patient, counselor or whatever. I can't do good by anybody and I don't want to trust any men. So don't get into any kind of counter stuff with them, but just to be aware that it's there and that you want to stop it. It's because it's a natural thing, Just think about when people give you compliments, how good it feels. And if every day you're getting that kind of reassurance from somebody and that kind of nurturing and support, it feels really good. It's like, wow, they think I'm important. They think I'm worthwhile. It's like, and if you got people who are starved for that, they're going to misinterpret it.
Have you came across a client that you were not able to tell and it wasn't like visible, but
But then at the instrument,
yeah, like the transparent.
the transference,
Yeah.
you can tell.
You can tell.
And sometimes you just have to say, I really appreciate that you're wanting to help me so much, but it's not really appropriate. Just let me take care of my own stuff. Thank you. Because some people will get overly helpful. Or I had a young guy once who actually got defensive on my behalf, which I had to tell him afterwards. I really appreciate it, but I'm not your mom, I'm not your grandma, I'm not your girlfriend. So just let me take care of this. And I don't want you guys to split because, but there was a guy that was threatening me and this little fella really, he was ready to go to blows with him. It's like, oh, don't do that. No. But I had to let him know that I could handle all that. But thank you very much. That's kind of you. And I wasn't sure if he thought I was his mom, his grandma, or if he thought I was just really good with him.
All the above.
And sometimes it can be like that too. Maybe a young person starts seeing you as another figure. And that's another one to stop, have them focus backwards. So you're going to come into transference and counter transference a lot and just deal with it. The other thing you'll come across is when people have, there's always a power differential between a provider and a client. And that can be used in very negative ways and it can hurt the client. Or the client can recognize you as somebody in authority and then kind of hurt themselves to try to please you or whatever. So you need to know that it's there. And if you see something out of the ordinary, you need to address it. You can't change it. You just need to address it and say, you don't need to prove anything to me. Just be yourself. You don't need to be healthier than you actually are. You don't need to be happier than you actually are. Just be you. And I always encourage that because people will try to please you a lot. And they'll try to think, or if you're sitting in the room, they'll say, my counselor says,
So let's see a counselor, does you run into third party? Sometimes you wish you had a third party, being a counselor, or
like another person.
yeah, like when you're with your client and then.
There have been times when I've had to ask another person to come in when I knew somebody was really volatile or had a tendency to be dishonest about things. I would have, but then that's happened with colleagues too. Please come in. But yeah, there's times when you have to call somebody else in and that's okay. I also worked with a young man once that he was in so much danger because he had raped 2 little nieces of his. And the other people were going, he told them what he had done, which was really stupid. To me, it was. I think he was thinking he wanted to make amends, but it was too soon and they were not the people to do it with because they were clients. But they were planning to give him like a blanket party that night. So I had to get him out of there emergently, out of the residential program. And I just simply told him, you told the wrong people what you did. They're wanting to hurt you. I need to get you transferred because it's going to be the best thing for you. But that one was a hard one for me because I really have a hard time working with child sexual abusers. So I had to really search and I had to talk to my former, she was my best friend, but she was also a former supervisor. So I called her and asked her, I said, this is what I think I should do. And she said, I think you should do. So. And that was kind of a personal involvement that I didn't let it go on, certainly. As soon as we heard what he had done, it's like. Do you know what a blanket party is? Okay, well, and I don't know where this comes from, but basically they were gonna wrap him up in his blanket and I'll just beat the heck out of him. So when he couldn't move and he was all wrapped up.
Oh, I thought they were getting him a blanket or something.
That was a nice thing.
Wasn't it?
Very nice thing. They do that in jail and detention centers a lot. Yeah. No, it's not.
It's 11:21.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
Like, all the
Okay, let's, yeah. Okay, so let's continue and go on and we'll try to get through this by 11:30. I mean, 12.
Okay.
Because we're kind of behind, but then we started really late. So,
Okay.
82? Is it 82?
Yes.
yeah,
Promote client knowledge, skill, and attitude with the maintenance of health and prevention of HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, sexually transmitted disease, hepatitis C, and other infectious diseases.
so we're basically wanting to really teach them about harm reduction and all
83, facilitate the development of basic and life skills associated with recovery.
that. Okay. 84.
Adapt counseling strategies to the individual characteristics of the client, including but not limited to disability, gender, sexual orientation, developmental level, culture, ethnicity, age, and health status.
Okay, self-explanatory, okay?
85, make constructive therapeutic responses when the client's behavior is inconsistent with stated recovery goals.
Good.
86, apply crisis prevention and management skills. 87, facilitate the client's identification, selection, and practice of strategies that help sustain the knowledge, skills, and attitudes needed for maintaining treatment progress and preventing relapse.
Okay. And the next element is on group counseling, which is a little different from individual.
88, describe, select, and appropriately use strategies from accepted and culturally appropriate models for group counseling with clients with substance use disorders.
And also mental health disorders, all disorders. Okay.
89, carry out the actions necessary to form a group, including but not limited to determining group type, purpose, size, and leadership, recruiting and selecting members, establishing group goals, and clarifying behavioral ground rules for participating, identifying outcomes, and determining criteria and methods for termination or graduation from the group.
Okay. And if you need help with any of that, let me know. I've done a lot of curriculum development for different approaches, different ages, different genders, different lifestyles. And so we can just go from that. In a situation like this, there's not a whole lot of selecting. They're usually put there because of a need.
90, facilitate the entry of new members and the transition of exiting members. 91, facilitate group growth within the established ground rules and movement towards group and individual goals by using methods consistent with group type. 92, understand the concepts of process and content and shift the focus of the group when such a shift will help the group move towards its goals.
Shalini just did an excellent intervention there because she said, it's 11, so gotta get on with this. So she shifted from goofing off to back to studying again. Okay. 93? You don't have 93? Okay.
Describe and summarize the client's behavior within the group to document the client's progress and identify needs and issues that may require modification in the treatment plan.
Okay. So as you're going through each client, if they're not getting what they need, when you do their treatment review, then change it slightly, okay. 94,
Understand the characteristics and dynamics of families, couples, and significant others affected by substance. 95, be familiar with and appropriately use models of diagnosis and intervention for families, couples, and significant others, including extended kinship or tribal family structures.
mhm.
96, facilitate the engagement of selected members of the family or significant others in the treatment and recovery process. 97, assist families, couples, and significant others in understanding the interaction between the family system and substance use behaviors. 98, assist families, couples, and significant others in adopting strategies and behaviors that sustain recovery and maintain healthy relationships.
So basically, we already do most of this all the time and what we do on a daily basis. This is just, if I look at this, I could say, yeah, we do this, and then, you know. So you don't have to do anything new. This is not new steps. It's just, you already know. Okay. Dimension 6. Client, family, and community education. Somebody read that definition.
The process of providing client, families, and others in community groups with information and risk related to psychoactive substance use, as well as available prevention treatment and recovery resources.
Okay. Competency 99.
Provide culturally relevant formal and informal education programs that raise awareness and support substance abuse prevention and the recovery process. 100, describe factors that increase the likelihood for an individual, community, or group to be at risk for or resilient to psychoactive substance use disorders. 101, sensitize others to issues of cultural identity, ethnic background, age, and gender in prevention, treatment, and recovery.
So all across the board, we need to focus on all these things, okay? And we do for the most part. Everything we do, okay. 104.
Describe the
Oh, sorry. Because look, on top it says 104, 105, 106, 102, 103.
yes.
Okay,
So just
Yeah,
read
I
down.
Can I do 102?
yeah.
Describe warning signs, symptoms, and the course of substance use disorders.
Okay,
103, describe how substance use disorders affect families and concerned others.
okay,
104, describe the continuum of care and resources available to the family and concerned others. 105, describe principles and philosophy of prevention, treatment, and recovery. 106, understand and describe the health and behavior problems related to substance use, including transmission and prevention of HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, sexually transmitted diseases, hepatitis C, and other infectious diseases.
so when you look at our, it might seem out of place, but when we're looking at our assessment, it asks about Hep C in the medical part, it's like, what? But yeah, and then from there, we look at the other conditions as well. So if it's going,
107, teach life skills, including but not limited to stress management, relaxation, communication, assertiveness, and refusal skills.
okay. And then dimension 7, documentation.
The recording of the screening and intake process, assessment, treatment plan, clinical reports, clinical progress notes, discharge summaries, and other client related data.
Okay, so everything goes in the documentation, right? Okay. Okay, competency 108.
Demonstrate knowledge of accepted principles of client record management. 109, protect client rights to privacy and confidentiality in the preparation and handling of records, especially in relation to the communication of client information with third parties.
That's all the HIPAA, part 2, not HIPAA, the, well, HIPAA's part of it, but also CFR Part 242 on the confidentiality. 42 Part 2. What did I say?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. Backwards here.
110, prepare accurate and concise screening, intake, and assessment reports.
Okay. And put them all in the GUI. Okay. 111.
Record treatment and continuing care plans that are consistent with agency standards and comply with applicable administrative rules.
Mhm.
112, record progress of client in relation to treatment goals and objectives. 113, prepare accurate and concise discharge summaries. 114, document treatment outcomes using accepted methods and instruments.
Okay. And I have forms and things, templates for all of these things to make sure we're doing it right. And I know that Laura, Jim, and Shalene, you have access to those. You guys, there's a jump drive filled with all of our SOAPs, our forms, our policies, SOPs, forms, policies, what else? I think that's what's in there. You can get all those things in there. Okay. Dimension 8.
Professional and ethical responsibilities, definition, the obligation of an addiction counselor to adhere to accepted ethical and behavioral standards of conduct and continuing professional development.
Okay.
Competency 115, adhere to established professional codes of ethics that define the professional context within which the counselor works to maintain professional standards and safeguard the client. 116, adhere to federal and state laws and agency regulations regarding the treatment of substance use disorders.
Okay. 117.
Go ahead.
Interpret and apply information from current counseling and psychoactive substance use research literature to improve client care and enhance professional growth. 118, recognize the importance of individual differences that influence client behavior and apply this understanding to clinical practice. 119, use a range of supervisory options to process personal feelings and concerns about clients.
So it's okay to have concerns and issues around clients, even like this one just makes my skin crawl. I really don't want to work with them. Would you take them? There's something going on that I don't trust, or I'm related to these people and I don't want to deal with them. All of that's okay, but you need to work it out with your supervisor and let them know what's going on so that they can make an appropriate transfer to somewhere else. The alternative might be that if you're forced to deal with that client anyway, you might subconsciously not provide adequate care. So talk it out with somebody, or if there's somebody you feel like is just really romantically attached to you, talk that out with somebody too. If that transference is going on, talk it out with somebody and document.
120, conduct evaluations of professional performance, applying ethical, legal, and professional standards to enhance self-awareness and performance.
Okay, any questions about those? Okay, last slide. 121.
Obtain appropriate continuing professional education. 122, participate in ongoing supervision and consultation. 123, develop and use strategies to maintain one's physical.
And that should say, I should see physical, emotional, spiritual self.
Okay.
Just one's whole self. One of the things is that we need to know how to let go of the issues of the office at the end of the day, leave it there, not take it home with us. We don't give out our personal telephone number so people can call us at home and try. We don't do those kinds of things.
No, that's what I was getting at with from here.
Mhm.
It's like phone calls on the weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the things is when we're working with our clients, we need to help them set up like safety plans. One of the things I tell my clients, okay, you're doing this, this, and this. If something's happening to you that you really feel triggered, go ahead and call the office and they'll get in touch with me. And we'll make arrangements to talk about it, but they always have a plan for what they'll do on their own. So be sure when you're answering this self-eval, did everybody get one?
No.
Put down those two. Oh geez, does somebody have an extra one that I thought I made enough. This is not it. Okay. Oh,
Make copies.
Do you want me to stop?
everybody has one now?
I don't mind.
Everybody, I thought I had made enough
Do you want me to
copies.
stop recording them?
Yes, please.
Okay.